Have you ever felt closer to strangers on a train than to a colleague you see every day? Or wondered why a single awkward meeting can erode months of goodwill? If so, you're experiencing something most people ignore. Trust is not just a feeling, it is a structure. Like a building, it has foundations, load-bearing walls, thresholds, and circulation paths. And if any of those elements are poorly designed, the whole thing creaks. In this video, we'll ask a simple but powerful question. Can we design trust intentionally, as if it were an architectural object? The answer is yes, and the tools are more concrete than you expect. Let's start with the problem. We typically talk about trust as if it were a character trait. Either you have it or you don't, or as if it were entirely verbal, built by promises, speeches, and reputation. But social neuroscience shows trust is scaffolded by patterns, spatial distance, rhythms of contact, micro-exchanges of favors, transparency cues, and predictable timing. Those patterns create implicit expectations that our brains learn to rely on. When the patterns align, trust flows naturally. When they don't, even small inconsistencies register as risk. Think of trust as a bridge. The material matters, competence, honesty, but so do the supports and the approach ramps. A wildly competent engineer who never returns calls builds the same mistrust as an average engineer who shows up on time and explains things clearly. That's because reliability is encoded through patterns more than single words. So how do we design trust? I'll give you 3 core architectural primitives: cue, rhythm, and margin. And then a toolbox of constructors you can use in teams, relationships, and with yourself. Cue, rhythm, and margin. Cue is the visible sign that says here is how to behave. Rhythm is the temporal pattern that makes behavior predictable. Margin is the buffer, spatial, temporal, or procedural, that protects against small mistakes becoming catastrophic. Imagine walking into a well-designed office. There's a clear reception area, cue, weekly stand-ups at the same time, rhythm, and an escalation protocol so a missed deadline doesn't cause a meltdown, margin. That physical and temporal design lowers anxiety and invites you to take interpersonal risks. Now the constructors. 1. The rule of small asymmetric concessions. This is the idea behind give a little to receive a lot, but framed architecturally. Design interaction sequences where the first move is a small, low-cost concession that signals benevolence and creates asymmetric obligation. Practically in a team, this might mean a manager regularly making small gestures, early feedback, public micropraises, a small help with a ticket, that are easy to reciprocate and thus seed trust. The asymmetry is key. The manager's small, voluntary concession signals safety without demanding equivalency. In relationships, it's the first tiny favor that demonstrates intent. Brewing coffee before a difficult conversation or sending a brief message after a meeting. Visualize this in animation as a domino row where tiny tiles, small concessions, tilt together to stabilize a larger platform. 2. Temporal buffers. Time is one of our most honest signals. When responses are predictably timed, your brain marks the other person as reliable. Design temporal buffers into your interactions, scheduled check-ins, guaranteed 24-hour response windows, or cooling periods before escalation. These buffers prevent surprise. Surprise is social friction. For example, in a team, set a 48-hour default for non-urgent questions and a separate protocol for urgent matters. In personal relationships, agree on a rule like, I'll respond to messages about logistics within the day, but for emotional conversations, we schedule a half-hour call. This clarity removes ambiguity and reduces reactive mistrust. In animation, show timelines with colored bands, green for expected responses, yellow for exceptions, red for emergencies. 3. Visual markers of honesty. Humans are pattern detectors. We rely on consistent signals. Visual markers are artifacts that communicate transparency. Shared documents with visible edit histories, annotated decision logs, badges of responsibility on a team board, or a physical inbox with labeled trays for urgent, pending, and done. In relationships, it might be the habit of saying, I heard you, and summarizing the other person's point. A verbal visual marker. These markers act like windows in a building. They let light in, making the interior legible and reducing suspicion. Now, concrete applications and exercises you can implement this week. A practical toolkit for designers of human connection. Team Toolkit. A. Onboarding architecture. Create a 30, 60, 90-day map with visible milestones and a trust checklist that includes who will check in, when, and by what channel. Make those checkpoints visible on a shared timeline. B. Meeting rhythm design. Replace ad hoc meetings with a rhythm of micro-meetings. Short stand-ups twice a week, one deeper sync on Fridays, and a monthly decision review where small asymmetric concessions are recapped publicly: who helped whom, what trade-offs were made. Use agenda templates with a safety check item: 1 minute for people to flag emotional or workload concerns. C. Escalation margins. Instead of a single binary escalation path, create graded margins. Triage, assist, escalate, with clear time windows. That way, mistakes get absorbed before they become crises, preserving relational capital. Relationship toolkit. A. Micro-gestures. Map. List 3 small asymmetric concessions you can offer this week: a 5-minute check-in, a small chore, a handwritten note. Schedule them as cues. B. Temporal pact. Agree on a temporal buffer for conflict, a 24-hour pause or a 2-hour check-in rule to prevent reactive misunderstandings. C. Visibility rituals. Introduce one transparency practice. Share a calendar block for a mental health hour or summarize the day at dinner to create windows rather than walls between you. Self-trust. Toolkit. The most neglected architecture is the one inside you. Design cues, rhythms, and margins for your own promises. A. Cue. Leave the book you mean to read on your pillow. Leave workout clothes by the door. B. Rhythm. Create a predictable ritual. Write for 15 minutes at 9 a.m. each weekday and honor it like a meeting with someone else. C. Margin. Allow yourself a bounded failsafe. If you miss the writing slot, do 5 minutes before bed. These small margins prevent collapse into "I'm a failure" narratives and preserve self-trust. A few quick templates you can copy now. Team meeting template. 5-minute safety check. 10-minute progress round. Small asymmetric concession. Share one small help you gave or got. 10-minute blockers triage. 5-minute agreement on next steps and expected response times. Relationship check-in. 2-minute mood signal from each person. Uses simple visual marker: green/yellow/red. 10-minute topic with agreed time buffer for follow-up if emotions spike. One small supportive action decided. Self-trust daily. Morning cue, visual, midday rhythm, micro-task, evening margin, 5-minute review, and redo if missed. Now, some ways to measure whether your architecture is working. Look for the reduction of social friction, fewer repeated clarifying messages, increased willingness to take interpersonal risks, more requests for help, earlier raising of problems, and a decline in the social cost of mistakes. Mistakes being treated as data, not as character evidence. Qualitative signals matter. Are people more willing to be candid? Do you feel less anxiety about misunderstandings? Use a simple weekly pulse. 3 questions scored 1-5. Clarity of expectations, timely responses, and perceived safety to speak up. If scores rise, your structures are doing their job. It's important to be gentle with this process. Designing trust is not manipulation. It is moral engineering in service of human flourishing. Trust architectures should be transparent and consented to. People should understand the rules and opt into them. When we design invisibly or coercively, we breed brittle systems that collapse under stress. Ethically designed structures amplify agency. They make cooperative behavior easier, not compulsory. Finally, a small lab exercise you can try right now. Pick one relationship: a colleague, a partner, yourself. Apply one constructor for 7 days, a small asymmetric concession, a temporal buffer, or a visual marker, and observe what changes. Write down 3 micro changes: fewer misunderstandings, more requests for help, less avoidance. These observations are the raw materials for iterating your design. Trust, like architecture, improves with revision. The great thing about designing trust is that small edits often have outsized impact. A finished building requires many bricks, but a single clear doorway or a well-lit corridor can change how people move through it. If you adopt even one of these constructors, a predictable response rhythm, a modest initial concession, or a transparent marker of intent, you will have shifted the structural conditions that make trust possible. You've just built a better approach ramp for connection. If this toolkit helped you see trust as something you can shape and test, help us build a community that treats relationships like design projects. Like, share, and subscribe to Mind Unlocked, so more people can get simple, research-based tools for designing better minds and better connections. Join our workshop of ideas and bring a friend to the blueprint.